Let's talk it over with California Congressman Ro Khanna, a Democrat. Congressman, good to have you with us. I know that you did not necessarily agree with moving forward with these strikes, but I'm curious what your thoughts are about what we just heard from Macron today, and that is he convinced the president to keep troops in Syria, to not withdraw.
Anna, before I answer, if I could just say I speak for all my colleagues that our thoughts are with Barbara Bush and the Bush family. She really epitomizes grace and civility. To your point about President Macron, my question is, what is our strategy? The problem here is that the president shouldn't be consulting President Macron. He needs to consult the United States Congress. He didn't come to the United States Congress for authorization. Just a week ago, he was talking about pulling all our troops out. Now we're striking. There's no coherent strategy. And I think I speak for many Americans, many of my Republican colleagues, who don't want us in another war and want our troops back home.
So you call the Syria strikes a violation of the War Powers Act. Would you have supported the strikes if the president had come to Congress?
I would not have at this time because first, I think we should have had the UN go in to assess where the strikes were and assess blame. Now, I think Assad is a brutal person.
But of course, Russia vetoed that. I mean, that was up for discussion at the UN, but Russia wouldn't let that go forward.
Anna, you're right. Russia vetoed the two demands when we said we wanted people going in to figure out who did the strikes. But in terms of whether the strikes happened, we would have been able to get that through. And actually, some people in Britain proposed, and the Dutch and others proposed, that we do it piecemeal. If we had just gotten the UN in there, that would have been a first step. And I think Assad needs to be brought up on war crimes. But I don't think that striking empty buildings is going to do anything to alleviate the humanitarian crisis. I mean, Assad is just as strong. He's going to continue to bomb civilians. And if you look at some of the reports from their Syrian civilians, they're concerned that the atrocities may actually escalate, that Assad's going to take this as license to kill more folks. So I don't think a military solution is going to save lives.
Certainly no one can question the suffering of the Syrian people. And so far in 2018, we know the U.S. has admitted just 11 Syrian refugees. The U.S. admitted more than 3,000 the year before, more than 15,000 refugees in 2016. If this administration is concerned enough about the humanitarian crisis to launch a military strike against Syria, should they also be concerned enough to accept more victims of this situation?
Absolutely, and that's some of the frustrating hypocrisy. I'm glad that there are people in the administration who see the horror of what's going on in Syria. I don't question their sincerity. It's horrific what's happening, and I hope that they will reconsider allowing some of those refugees to come to the United States like we have in the past. As you pointed out, we took nearly 3,000 refugees in the years before President Trump took office. Now we're taking 11. There's no reason this president shouldn't allow more refugees. And what we should work towards is regional ceasefires and actual peace that's going to help the civilians in Syria, not just a show of force for symbolic reasons.
Now, you've talked about holding Assad accountable, and accepting refugees doesn't necessarily do that, right? So what is the strategy there?
Well, I think he's a war criminal. I think we ought to be taking it up to have him brought before The Hague. Human Rights Watch and others have called for this. I have no doubt that he's in the past gassed his own people, but we need to have an evidence-based approach and use the full force of international law to hold him accountable. And in the meantime, I think we need to involve Russia, Turkey, even Iran in trying to get regional ceasefires in Syria. The concern I have is, yes, we struck empty buildings. We did nothing to mitigate Assad's power. He's going to go and strike even with greater force. Then what are we going to do? I don't think the United States should get into another war. And absent us doing that, I don't see a solution other than regional ceasefires with all the multilateral players at the table.
Congressman Ro Khanna, we appreciate it. Thank you for being here.
Anna, thank you for having me back on.